Ah, yes, another one of the minor prophets. Obadiah has only one chapter of 21 verses. Let's set the scene. Remember Jacob and Esau? Esau sold his birthright to his brother Jacob, who then tricked his blind father into thinking he was Esau so he could receive his blessing. Well, many of Jacob's descendants lived in Judah, and Esau's descendants were in Edom. So the people of Judah and Edom were kin, like brothers. But Obadiah here is speaking out against the Edomites who, when Jerusalem fell, did not help their kinsfolk in Judah. In fact, they were actively participating in their destruction and celebrated their downfall. Obadiah gives a warning about God's justice and the consequences of betrayal, pride, and violence against one's kin. So it raises interesting questions about what God's justice actually is. As you have done, it shall be done to you. Your deeds shall return on your own head, the passage says. Sounds like karma in a way. Another way to say this is natural consequences. God's justice often simply allows our actions to bear their natural fruit, a humbling reality that we participate in our own judgment. But the Edomites' fate wasn't sealed by a single act. As C.S. Lewis notes, our state is often determined by a pattern of choices. Edom made choices that formed them into creatures at war with God and others. I think of St. Ignatius's two standards meditation. Do we choose the standard of Christ or the standard of the enemy? We have the choice. But I don't think most of us directly choose the standard of the enemy. It's often slow and subtle. As Lewis says, taking your life as a whole, with all your innumerable choices, all your life long, you are slowly turning this central thing into a heavenly creature or a hellish creature, either into a creature that is in harmony with God or not. In other words, what is the pattern? What is that general trajectory of your life? Now, our scripture today speaks about drinking and gulping. It is the cup of judgment. But like many symbolic cups in the Bible, this cup is transformative. It really is a mirror. When Obadiah says, "As you have done, it shall be done to you," he's referencing a Hebrew concept that suggests not that God actively punishes, but that our actions create patterns that eventually return to us. It's not retribution so much as a revelation that God's universe is fundamentally relational and interconnected. Now, what if I told you there was something that could help you recognize your inner state, your unhealthy patterns? That something is humiliation. Franciscan Richard Rohr says he always prays for his daily humiliation. When our pride is punctured, when our masks slip, we catch glimpses of our true selves, both the shadow and the light. Like the cup in Obadiah, humiliation serves not to destroy us, but to transform us by showing us who we truly are. In other words, it helps us see that plank in our own eye. The Edomites refused this humbling mirror, continuing in pride until judgment became inevitable. But we can choose differently. We can actively seek the small daily humiliations that keep us honest with ourselves and with God. Our actions have ripple effects, and they return to us. We create our own hell. Jesus himself said, "The measure you give will be the measure you get." But divine justice doesn't just allow destruction, it seeks to ultimately restore. The last verse of our passage says that on Mount Zion, on God's mountain, the house of Jacob shall take possession of those who dispossessed them. The oppressed will be restored. Obadiah speaks from the perspective of the defeated, offering a remarkable counter narrative to the imperial powers. Consider how radical this prophetic imagination would have been, claiming that the seemingly all-powerful forces of the day, Edom, were themselves subject to greater patterns of justice. How might we speak truth to such powers today? So where does this leave us? Perhaps Obadiah's message invites us to stand under the humbling waterfall of God's justice, not with fear, but with hope. For if God's justice truly mirrors our actions, then our acts of mercy, kindness, and reconciliation create ripples of the same. While the Edomites chose the path of betrayal and hardened their hearts against their brothers, we face similar choices today. Will we stand with the vulnerable or align with the powerful? Will we celebrate others' downfall or seek their restoration? The path to becoming heavenly creatures begins with humility, recognizing that we are not exempt from this cosmic mirror. Perhaps this is why Mount Zion, where those who escape shall gather, is described as holy. It is a place where proper perspective is restored, where we see clearly both our brokenness and our belovedness. And in that clear-sighted humility, we find not just judgment, but the promise that God's justice ultimately bends toward restoration and wholeness.